Hello guys, welcome to the channel. This is my Wildrift tier list, and we're kicking it off with Baron Lane. Before I do, if you want to get involved with the giveaway for the end of April, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It would really mean a lot to me. And also thank you to G2A for sponsoring the channel. I don't want to waste your time though. I want to get straight into the tier list. Let's talk about it. Baron Lane. This is a big shift up. Fiora is in top with Akali, and this is something that I've noticed across Season 2. Fiora is really starting to get played a lot. People are starting to realize absolutely how strong Fiora is as a champion. I used to think that Fiora was a little limited in terms of what she could do. I always felt like she was a bit more sort of orientated to split pushing, and it's not something that you can make work in solo queue effectively. But the more I've seen Fiora, the more I've seen how far she can get ahead in lane and how she can easily convert that into team fights. I have seen Fiora's like two-shot AD carries on the back line just by jumping in and like two-tapping them. So Fiora has become an incredibly popular pick, and I think is definitely in the OP category. Just go and ask Darkbreaker. He plays a lot of Fiora. I also think Akali is still super strong in the Baron lane. I've also got rid of the in-between tiers because I think they were a little confusing. So I've decided to separate things out into just clear tiers as I had before. Darius, Malphite, Camille and Gragas, all good in the S tier category. And you'll notice that I've put a small box over the top 6 champions. These are my ELO climbing champions. If you want to climb ELO, these are the 6 champions that you should probably look to focus on in the Baron lane. In A tier, we're talking about champions that are good. These champions will do very well. In any game that you pick them in, they'll still be useful. Olaf, still a great dupe bruiser. Pantheon, still pretty solid. I don't think Pantheon is S+ tier after the buffs. I think he's okay. He's not insane. Wukong, Yasuo, Garen's pretty strong. Kennen and Jarvan are all good Baron lane picks. In terms of the okay picks, Singed, I think just because of the way the meta is kind of gone, Akali and Fiora, they're very, very good at dueling Singed. I used to think that Singed had a really good place in the meta, but because Malphite's dropped off a little bit, and other champions that are a little more tank orientated, he's kind of dropped off a little bit. But you know, the B tier picks are all the picks that are just okay. Like they're okay. Vayne, you'll notice, is in here. I do think Vayne has a place. Like if they pick a Mundo or a Nasus, and I don't want to pick one of the other champions that is relatively good into those, like the Akali, the Darius, or the Fiora, Vayne has got a good place against those types of champions. So I think, you know, with the buffs to Vayne, we could see her coming back a little more into the meta. I think she could be pretty strong. And then we don't talk about C tier and D tier because, you know, they're just bad. I mean, you just don't pick Tryndamere, guys. You know it. You know it by now. But as I said, the top 6 champions that you see highlighted in a very sort of translucent box, these are my ELO climbing champions. These are the ones that you should focus on if you want to climb ELO on the ranked ladder. Okay, let's talk about the jungle now. I've had Xin Zhao there because he used to be OP a long time ago in the jungle, but no more. Let's take a look at the jungle tier list for the moment. And as you'll see, not much has changed at the top end of the tier. Evelynn and Lee Sin, in my opinion, are still the 2 best junglers in the game. I don't think the Evelynn nerf massively impacted her ability to carry games. It has definitely affected her early playstyle. It's definitely, you know, means that if you sort of hit level 5 straight away and then use your ultimate, you might not get it back in time for Dragon, which is definitely something that can be an issue for Evelynn. So you have to be a bit more choosy about when you use that ultimate at the first stage of the game. But I still think Evelynn is incredibly good as a carry jungler right now. But I also think Lee Sin is still super strong too. He didn't really receive any nerfs, and he's still a good counter and a good answer into Evelynn. There are a load of good S tier junglers that I think are worth considering. Jarvan, Wukong, Vi, Olaf, and Shyvana. I consider these champions, if I see them in my game, a good jungle choice. Like, these are solid jungle choices, and they will fit into most compositions. Shyvana is definitely on the weaker side right now, but I do think that she's still a very viable and strong jungler. A tier. I don't think Rammus is OP. I think he has the problem that Amumu has, where he takes a little bit too long to come online, and you really have to be very gank heavy with Rammus, and if there are no gank opportunities, Rammus kind of struggles a little bit to get into the game. But he's a good jungler, the same as Amumu, Xin Zhao, Diana, and Pantheon. They're all just good junglers. Mundo nerf has definitely knocked him back. He's okay. Gragas, Graves, and Jax. I don't like Graves that much. The problem with Graves is that the power farming style of jungler in Wildrift just doesn't work. It's just not good compared to the PC counterpart. There isn't really a good way of just power farming your way through to the mid game. You need to have a presence within the first 4 to 5 minutes of the game, and it's just not that possible or not easily possible with Graves. In C tier, I've seen some Darius jungle played. I've seen some Camille jungle played in pro play. Don't think they're good. I think Camille is, both of them are much better suited to the Baron lane. Tryndamere down in D tier, and all the way at the bottom right, I would make his own tier for him if I could. It's Master Yi down in Master Yi tier. Terrible, terrible pick. Master Yi sucks. Yeah, he does suck. Anyway, we're on to mid lane. Let's take a look at the mid lane champion pool and see what's really working right now. And as far as I can tell, the Katarina nerf meant absolutely nothing. She is still super strong. Who knew that taking only 10 damage off her passive would not make Katarina any worse? But Diana has kind of crept up because Galio got nerfed and he was kind of one of the direct counters into Katarina. They kind of cut his damage on his first ability by half because there was a bug. But now Diana is kind of rising up as a very strong answer into Katarina, and we're seeing quite a lot of Diana in the mid lane. I think the buffs did put her in a really good spot, and so I consider Diana a very high tier pick right now. Then there are a load of just good picks in the mid lane. Akali, still super strong in both mid and Baron lane. She's a very strong pick overall. Orianna, still solid. Corki, still very good. Ziggs, despite the nerfs. Now, Ziggs was S+, but I do think his early game took enough of a hit to say, okay, he can't shove the wave level 1 now. And so, therefore, there is a bit of an area of his game that has been hit hard. But Ziggs still scales up super nicely and is still a very strong pick in the mid lane. And then Galio is still good, but he's just not broken. He's still very good. He's just not absolutely broken. In A tier, there are a load of very good picks that you can choose. Ahri, Zed, who I think is kind of sleeper strong right now. Yasuo, Twisted Fate, Aurelion Sol. I'm seeing a lot of Seraphine still in pro play. I think Seraphine's a good pick. And I've moved Gragas back down a little bit again because we're not really seeing him played in mid. You have the B tier picks, which are things like Annie, Fizz, Kennen, and Pantheon. They all work. And then the C tier picks like Lux, and then below that we have the Lulu and the Sona. I would say that I think that Tristana is potentially a little sleeper OP. She's got a lot of burst potential in the mid lane. So Tristana mid, watch out for it. I'm not willing to say that it is OP or broken right now, but I do think there is a case to be made for Tristana mid in the meta. Okay, let's talk a little bit about AD carries, because I know that some people have been talking a lot about, especially on my community tab, about why Ezreal is so good right now. I think that Ezreal is really good, not only because of him being quite strong, just as a champion, but also because of the meta. If you go back and look at what is strong in the jungle, in the Baron lane, in the mid lane, you'll see that it's very assassin focused, very kind of dive heavy. There are a lot of things that can just kill AD carries, and that's only going to get worse when Rengar and Kha'Zix get released. Ezreal is one of the safest, most mobile AD carries that has a build path that can even incorporate things like armor with Iceborne Gauntlet. Ezreal is very strong, and because of the support meta, which you'll see in a moment, Ezreal has found a really nice place and can be quite oppressive in the laning phase. However, Kai'Sa and Xayah are both still very, very, very good. Those three AD carries dominate the meta right now. Just below them are a load of good AD carries like Jinx, Jhin, Corki, and Draven. Draven is still strong despite the nerfs. And then below that, you have things like Miss Fortune, who has definitely dropped off in terms of power level. Not through any fault of her own, but just the meta has kind of shifted away from what Miss Fortune is good at. Varus, who I still think is a little bit sleeper OP. Tristana, I think, is a solid A tier AD carry now. I do not think she's insanely broken, but I do think she is really good. The buffs are definitely helping her, but she still has a really big mid-game lull, and that's one of her major issues. Vayne, I don't think this has made Vayne any better. Neither do I think it's made Ashe any better. In fact, I moved Ashe down a tier. I still think Ashe is really garbage in Wildrift. She just feels really weak in terms of damage output compared to almost every other AD carry. Ziggs, I'm seeing played a little bit in the AD carry role, but I prefer him in mid. And then obviously, as per usual, even though Yasuo is viable, I would never recommend him for solo queue unless you're a Yasuo one-trick. And also, please don't play Twisted Fate as an AD carry. Okay, let's jump on to the support tier list now. We are heading towards the end of our tier list. Thank you for staying with me this entire time. Let's take a look at our supports. Now, I think the meta is being dominated right now by Janna and Braum, mainly because people started to realize that Braum countered Alistair and Janna countered Alistair. So Alistair kind of started getting counterpicked by both Braum and Janna at high elo a lot. So even though I think Alistair remains a very good support, he's kind of filtered down out of being picked every game because people have just been picking Janna and Braum pretty much all the time. So you generally tend to see Janna and Braum swapped between the support roles heavily at high elo. But I think Alistair, Leona, and Galio are all still really good. And then Lux. Why is Lux outside of the Elo climbing champs box, even though she's in S tier? Well, I think Lux is specifically a really good pick into enchanters. And I think that, you know, if you see someone pick like Seraphine or Sona or Nami or Janna, like I'm going to pick Lux and be like, cool, I'm going to get a 1000 shield for my team every 6 seconds. Good luck. And I think that's what makes Lux really strong. However, I think, you know, into some of the other matchups like the Leonas, the Alistairs, she can struggle. And I think that she's not a super consistent pick unless you're very good with Lux. So even though I believe in terms of her champion strength, she's good enough to be S tier, I wouldn't go and pick Lux every single game. There are better champions to pick blind, like the Galios, the Alistairs, the Brahms, and the Jannas. Below that, I think that Rakan and Nami and Seraphine are all really good, but I just think that they are either very user-specific or they have like a specific scenario. Like, I will pick Nami pretty much into any matchup, but I don't think she's as strong as Janna. I think, you know, her CC is a lot harder to land, even though I do believe Nami to be a really strong support. I think, you know, I wouldn't pick her over Janna unless I was really comfortable with Nami. Rakan's kind of fallen off because, you know, Leona, Galio, Alistair, and Braum are all really good into Rakan, as is Janna, and so Rakan doesn't really have a good spot in the meta right now. Seraphine's very much a one-trick champion. If you're watching this, Trottles, I hate you. I don't really, but you're just really, really good at Seraphine. That's annoying. But I think, you know, you have to be very good at Seraphine to make her work well. I think Lulu's still strong. Below that, things like Sona, Pantheon, Blitzcrank are okay. I think Soraka is kind of garbage right now, unfortunately, so not particularly recommending. Soraka's the one like true support that I don't recommend because she just doesn't feel very strong right now. But yeah, this is my support tier list. This is the end of the tier list. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope the explanations were good enough for you as well, and I will see you soon.